Are you caught in the whirlwind of overwhelming responsibilities? And does the very thought of Monday morning send chills down your spine? Well, it's time to toss those feelings out the window. Welcome to Season 3 of the Take Notes podcast, where you get to make yourself the priority in order to show up as your best self. I'm your host, Jen Rafferty, former music teacher, emotional intelligence practitioner, mom of two, and founder of Empowered Educator, and I've been where you are. In this season, we're not just talking about surviving, we are diving deep into thriving. Are you ready to take the lead in your life? Well, let's do this. Hello and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Take Notes. I am here with Taylor Nardone, who is a speaker, a coach, and a performer based in Boston, Massachusetts. And having gone through a transformational awakening in the spring of 2022, he quit his teaching job and ventured into the unknown. And what would follow was a journey of absolute magic and immense trust. And he intuitively found his calling in guiding others in their return back home to themselves. With the phrase found in nearly all of his content, Taylor lives by the eternal knowing that all is well, always, and in all ways. Thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with me today.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited too. There are so many interesting parallels to both of our journeys. And I want to ask you, first and foremost, this awakening that you had in 2022. You know, you were a music teacher teaching elementary school music, and like many of us, going through the pandemic really shifted things and highlighted maybe some of the stuff that was bubbling under the surface that we now couldn't ignore anymore. So what happened in that spring that made the shift for you?
Yeah, it was a crazy time in my life for sure. So I actually was teaching music at the time, and I was studying to become a general ed teacher as well, which a lot of people actually didn't know. So my last year of teaching, I was getting my master's. So I was working obviously 5 days a week teaching music. And then I was doing classes, I think Tuesday and Thursday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I was working at a restaurant to pay for the master's. So I was working, and I think just being generally extremely burnt out was the catalyst for this transformation that was coming. So it was a very big spiritual awakening, and it was something that kind of came through the lens of this very strong, like, intuitive call that was like, you need to jump into the unknown. It wasn't like, I quit your job because this is so difficult. It was more so like, nope, this is not for you anymore. You've done your part here. And it's time to step into a totally new chapter. So basically, for a couple of months towards the end of the school year, I thought I was going to be looking for, and I was for a little bit, new positions because I was ready to teach like second or third grade. And again, I loved my time as a music teacher, but it was just the appropriate transition. And so I was looking for these positions. And as I was doing it, I was like, I don't even think I want to be in a classroom. And so that's kind of how it all happened. And it basically was a 2-month period where I really sat on it. I was looking for signs left and right, and they were showing up. And in July, I took that leap, and it was terrifying, but also really exciting. And now I'm able to look back on my time as a teacher and really appreciate it for what it was. I have no regrets, but I'm able to look back and say, you know what, that served its purpose, and I did what I intended to do. So long-winded answer, but yeah, it was quite the spring.
Yeah, it is quite a transition to go from that and having a moment in time where you ask yourself, what do I want? Is this actually what I want? And I think what happens to most of us is that there is this moment of burnout or something catastrophic happens, or there's this big crisis. And that's the time when we start answering these questions because we're forced to ask them. But we don't have to wait for something like that to start asking these questions. And I know that in the work that you do now, you help guide people to understand their innate ability to ask these questions. So can you talk a little bit about now? So we made the transition, and we'll definitely circle back, but what is it that you're doing now to support people in understanding themselves?
Absolutely. Well, you're right. I think for a couple of years before I even had that big moment, it was bubbling up, and we always avoid it. We think, oh, well, that didn't go with logic. Okay, well, I want to take a big leap. I want to do something different. That's not what society tells me to do. And so it's stepping into your own truth and power and understanding that you actually have autonomy over your life. So that's predominantly what I do with people now. Is I do end up working with a lot of people that are kind of in that place of transitioning their career. That's kind of the catalyst for their beautiful transformation. And so I really work to get them back listening to their intuition, which really that gut feeling that you have is not wrong. And it typically, if it goes away for a time, it will come back. And letting people's minds expand beyond the realm of perhaps what they've experienced in their life so far to the land of possibility. And then we kind of tangibly work to find evidence to support the fact that the direction you want to go is actually possible. Other people have done it. And so It's this big, just very introspective process that really leads to you just opening up to the highest expression of who you are and then living a life in accordance with that. So that's my biggest thing. I'm for everyone doing what they want to do. I think when I had left my job, I think I was on teacher like quit talk for a little bit there. You know what I mean? People were like, oh, he left his job. And I'm like, it's really not even about that. I'm just for you having autonomy. I don't want anyone to feel stuck because you don't have to be stuck. So I think that's predominantly what I'm doing at this point. And it's been awesome. I've met so many incredible souls, and you'd be interested to hear that people that are in the workforce and also out of the workforce. I've worked with folks that are retired that are going, what is the purpose? Oh my gosh, I've worked all these years and now I'm here and I don't know what to do. And it's a pretty beautiful process.
It really is. And the word that I use in my work along the lines of what you're saying is we're talking about alignment. And that's the thing. I think people generally ignore their intuition because, like you said, it doesn't necessarily go with the logic and the experience that you're seeing with your three-dimensional senses. And intuition takes a little bit more of a leap of self-trust. And growing up, we get messages both implicitly and explicitly that we can't trust ourselves. So can you talk a little bit about that and how we lead people, or how people can then lead themselves, sometimes with the help of somebody else, to return to themselves, to trust?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the most important part is we don't want to keep the hammer on our back about, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this or I'm supposed to be doing that. I think when we look at this, we want to look at how important it is to just really understand, at least, that it's understandable why we believe the things we do based upon how we grew up and what we've experienced. So let's humanize ourselves for a moment too and understand that it makes sense. When I work with people and they have a really like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that, and we dive in a little bit to maybe how they grew up, even when we talk about money and getting into a money mindset, how was money talked about when you grew up? Whether you had it or not, how was it talked about? What was the percent? And so when you're younger, you're just taking all of that in, that it becomes your reality. But I think when it comes to your intuition, mine's always been pretty loud, but I always tell people your intuition is in your heart space. And it's a beautiful, like just motherly, warm, expansive feeling that always has a little bit of fear on it because your ego jumps in and your ego goes, not safe. So we're going to give you all the reasons why that's not safe. So what I really do in my work is I help people figure out the difference between their ego and their intuition, because your ego is a very chaotic voice in your head and it never stops. It's that unhealed version of us that screams there's a monster under the bed. And I tell people, I'm like, you had a child come up to you and say that, how would you respond? So you almost want to treat that part of you in the same way. You wouldn't demonize them and go, oh my God, what do you do? It's like, oh, well, let's go check. Or, you know what, wait a second. We've worked on this a few times. So once you start to really understand, wait a second, is that my ego jumping in, trying to keep me constantly in a state of survival when I'm actually not in danger? And if it is, then we take a moment and say, well, I don't think that belief is actually going to serve me in this moment. Okay, so what's a better feeling thought? What's a better belief that actually will serve me in that direction? And I tell people as well that your intuition, it feels like a full body. Yes, it's expansive. And then that fear naturally comes in, but it's just an unlived experience. So of course you're going to be a little scared. Being scared about something doesn't mean that you're not supposed to do it. In some cases, right? Like the traffic's going by, maybe it's not best to cross the street. So your ego has its time and place. But when it comes down to a new experience, at the end of the day, it's excitement without the breath. You breathe into it and you feel what's on the other side of that fear. What expansion lies there? And then when the ego comes in and goes, okay, well, logically, I'm going to have to plan all this out. We really don't, because when has anything ever gone according to plan? Probably never, right? So there's an element of trust in that you will figure things out as you go. So that's kind of the whole process of working with it, but it takes time. I think part of the process is also becoming aware that your thoughts are really not your reality. We've just let them become our reality. So getting yourself back to, as you were saying, your three-dimensional life for a second, puts you back into the blank canvas where there's nothing and everything all at the same time. And then you pick and choose the direction you want to go. But our thoughts can really spiral. We can really go down. I call it like the Hades whirlpool. It just keeps on going. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And you're completely speaking my language, which I so appreciate. I love the image that you said, excitement without the breath, especially as a singer. To me, that really resonated. If you are going to attempt to sing this beautiful phrase and you don't have the breath to support it, it's not happening.
And you know what? That's what we do with our body too. When we get scared, everything contracts. And as a singer, the most vulnerable thing that we can do, open up, sing. When we're scared, that's exactly what happens. But the magic lies beyond when you take that deep breath and you can actually let yourself really just unleash. So everything's all connected. It's pretty cool.
Isn't it? I know, it totally is. And what you were saying too brings me back to that moment where I've shared with my listeners before, and I talked with you before we started recording, is when I decided to take that leap. I signed my resignation letter and was so excited about it. I was smiling as I put it in the mailbox. And then 4 days later, I am a hot, sobby mess on my couch, like snot bubbles, the whole thing, because it was an unlived experience. I had been going to school every day in September since I was 4 years old. And now here I was making a new choice, and that scared the shit out of me. And leading into that was a much different experience than beating myself up about the fear. So can you talk about leaning into fear, leaning into how we experience that when your mind wants to feed you all of those negative thoughts about what could be happening, what might happen, what you should do, or what you're supposed to do? How do you lean in and acknowledge that's part of your beautiful biology so you can move through?
Absolutely. Well, you know what they always say, you have to feel to heal. So you have to go through the forest, unfortunately, but it's all a gift. It really is, because then you're aware of what those limiting beliefs are. And I always tell people, chances are in that new chapter, you can't take that belief system with you. So at least it came up now. At least it's coming up at the starting line and not 20 miles in when you feel like you're almost there. So again, it comes down to the awareness of it and understanding that your nervous system doesn't know what to do. It's all messed up because of this whole new experience. So it's honoring the fact that there's a piece of you that is incredibly scared right now. That's okay. We wouldn't shut them in the closet, right? We would take them with us, that younger version of us. Bring them in the room, take them with you. They need you. So they get to be the audience now. And we get to say to them, you don't have to drive the car anymore. It's okay. I've got you. And there's another version of us ahead that's already done it. We're going to let them lead. So with fear, I honor it, I acknowledge it, and I allow myself to feel it. You know, I think so often where we get into trouble is that we just reject these feelings that we have and we tuck it back down. We do something to whatever it is. We distract ourselves. And of course, it's going to come back later. So I think the best thing to do is to feel it while having the knowing that, you know what? I understand everything is working for my highest good. All is going to continue to be well. I'm going to continue to line up as I feel this and let these feelings come on out. But I think the important part is to not take, just as you wouldn't take a child telling you there's a monster under the bed, take that as the truth, to look at the fear with a heavy grain of salt, a boulder of salt, so to speak, because chances are it's just doing everything to keep you there. So you affirming to yourself, it's safe to be where I am. Am I in my body? Yes. Okay. I can be in my body. I can be where I am. I don't have to know this whole next chapter A to Z. I just get to take the step from A to B, and then C will appear, and then D will appear. So it's really reminding yourself that you can only ever take one step at a time. You can only ever be where you are, right? You're not going to experience what happens in the future. In the future, you experience it always in the present moment. So you re-anchor yourself to the present moment. And some of that fear oftentimes is able to dissipate. But when you go through the process of looking at what's that narration that keeps coming in, because it might be the same story. What might be the same story? Write it down and then start to take stock and go, so what are the pros and cons of holding on to that belief? Because there's pros. I won't have to risk the possibility of failure. I won't have to risk the possibility of this business not work, whatever it is, right? But what are the cons? And really, that list is always longer, and it always comes down to you're going to stay stuck. And everyone always says, you'd rather have tried than to not at all, right? At least just go for it. And so then what you do is you start to looking at that very objectively now. If you're going to study for a test, you're not going to study the wrong answer. So now you need to find some people that have done what you're aspiring to do and go, example, 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 example. I'm good. I'm going to walk. And the next time it comes in, you kind of rinse and repeat that process. You don't have to look at what someone else is doing and go, I have to recreate everything. No, you just take one step. But at least in that moment, doing that little process, and I work on this with clients, you're able to just move forward. Because when you're in alignment, as you know, your path is clear. It's clear. You just walk. But when we get out of alignment and we really respond and take so much truth to that fear or whatever belief that is that's coming in, all of a sudden we get farther and farther away from our path and it's hard to get back. But when you are in alignment, you simply walk. You step into the knowing that all is well, you walk and you respond to the inspiration you get. take stock of what thoughts are coming in. Does it serve me? Does it not serve me? I'm still here. I still have a brain. Awesome. I can function. I keep walking. So when you kind of get into that process, it starts to really work itself out, which is beautiful.
It really is beautiful. And I've had the pleasure of witnessing so many people make that transformation too, as I'm doing this myself, because as you know, it's not like you wake up one day and you're like, got it. As long as we're here on this earth, it's this beautiful journey that we get to practice what we share with our clients. One thing that you said too that I also resonated with, you talked about everything is happening for your highest good. And that is something that I truly believe. And that is one of the things that for me, with the teachers and educators that I work with, that's something you just have to get on board with. You just have to get on board with that one. And the alignment of your other beliefs are going to be so much easier if you actually can embody and believe in your cells that everything truly is happening to your highest good or for your highest good. How do you go about sharing that message with people so it sinks in?
Yes. Well, everyone's very different because everyone's had a different life experience. And first off, I honor that. I think when we go into doing this work, not from the place of thinking that we somehow know everything, it's more so really looking at everyone's experience and number one, validating it. Like it's understandable why we feel a certain way, why we have this. Absolutely. And so I think when I get into this work, that's usually something that I throw in there towards the end of sessions. You know what I mean? When we've gone in there a little bit, because I think it's difficult when you're experiencing something really intense to be like, oh, it's all happening for the best reasons ever. You know what I mean? And so really what it comes down to is you don't need in that moment or not needing to make sense of it. In fact, the more you try and make sense of it, all of it, the more confused you get. Because the answer, so to speak, does not lie within a place of logic in here. How can you look at the world and ever validate anything? It just doesn't make any sense. And yet somehow my soul and my intuition has a sense of exhilaration when I almost get confused about all. They're like, because the answer doesn't lie there. Trust me, there's an intelligence beyond you. Keep going with your message. All is well. And I have chills saying that because I know it to be true. And then you look for the moments where it does line up. Oh, I didn't get this, but oh my God. I mean, I just had a call before this that I'm like, I looked up and I was like, you really did it. Wow. Wow. Like it is just working. It's working. And so I think in a tangible way, one of the things I teach people is, okay, so I love the phrase open to anything attached to nothing. So for example, when something comes to you and it doesn't really go according to your very understandable plan, because we all plan things, right? No matter how much fun we have, like our brain naturally wants to play. It's okay. So let's say that something doesn't really line up as you would have expected, whatever it is. In that moment, it's not our job to write a dissertation about, okay, well, this is why this and that. Nope, you just let it be. If it's not this, it's something better. And we keep walking. Everything is working for my highest good. So frankly, if it doesn't line up with what I know to be true, that my success is inevitable, that my needs are met on this journey, then it's just not this. There's going to be something better that comes down. I'm excited to see what opportunity that is. And so then what you do is you're not getting stuck to that outcome and you're able to very clearly just continue to walk and get excited about and look for the new opportunities because oftentimes it's right there and we miss it because we get so focused, that tunnel vision. And this happens when something great is happening. You get very focused on that. Receive the gifts, all the blessings, all of it. It's all there. Sometimes it's just getting out of that tunnel and opening up and going, oh my goodness, there's glimmers everywhere. So that's usually how I'm able to kind of guide people through that a little bit.
Yeah. And it's important to remember too that you're right. This is not something that when you're really in it, highest good is not going to be the thing that's going to automatically pull you out of it because highest good doesn't always feel good. And that's important here too. Sitting on that couch, sobbing my eyes out, did not feel good at all. But zooming out with the wisdom now that I have almost 4 years later, that definitely was highest good. And so leaning in there to feel the feelings is important as well. And you said all of this so beautifully. So with the work that I have done and learned and the research that I've done, building program through Empowered Educator focuses on this work for teachers. Because my question to you is, if you knew what you know now when you were teaching, what might have been different for you?
Oh my goodness, my entire teaching career was being attached to every outcome. I think I spent so much time like back at 22, 23-year-old me who didn't know myself. I would get to school 2 hours before and stay 2 hours late just because. I'm like, well, this is who I am now. So I think part of this is I would have trusted that things were going to line up. I would have trusted that, you know what? It was a difficult day with a class. It was whatever it was. There's a better day coming, right? This doesn't have an impact necessarily on who I am as a person. I think sometimes when we're teaching, we just have this really intense feeling that when something doesn't go well, like you're responsible for so many beautiful souls in front of you, right? So many students in the class that we just take it on. We take it on somewhat. We're like, oh my gosh, we're not enough. We're not enough. We're not enough. And I think the core of this journey has been realizing that not only am I enough, but I never had to prove that. And so not having to prove it has been the most liberating experience. And by the way, I've had a lot of success not needing to prove anything. So I would go right back to day one and say, you do not need to prove anything to anybody. Your job is to walk in here. You're going to deliver a beautiful lesson and you're going to learn as you go. You don't have to be perfect on day one because perfect doesn't exist. And that's something that we've totally constructed in our mind to think that we're working towards. You just get better and better as you go, and you get to enjoy the process of becoming a stronger educator. You get to enjoy the process of getting better at your job. And I think in doing that, it allows you to be a lot more present where you are, and you're not putting as much pressure on yourself because the pressure, I mean, my goodness, like 22, 23, 24, the pressure I put on myself to be just flawless was insane. And it didn't make any, not that we talk about logic too much, but it didn't make any sense. It's like, I'm so young. How could I ever expect to be perfect? So I think part of it is just savoring where you are and enjoying the process of watching yourself unfold to become a stronger educator. And then down the road, maybe have some different interests and say, oh, wait a sec, I'm noticing myself desire a different career path. That's okay.
The thing that I've really observed in my work doing what I do now is that, if we want our students to know their self-worth, we need to know ours.
And they feel it. We all feel each other's energy. If I'm walking in there, like, it's not just that I want to have a level of fake confidence. That's not that at all, but a level of peace within myself to say, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay for me to make a mistake, and if I'm running around putting on the dog and pony show and it's all got to be perfect, I mean, I think that rubs off on my students and doesn't really give the right message. And especially as someone who taught music, I don't ever want a student to think that they have to be perfect and that if their voice cracks, it's, oh my God. Imperfection is the beauty of this whole experience. And so I think that I would go back and probably put that exact saying just everywhere.
Sure. Well, and you're right. It doesn't matter what we say to the kids, because of course we would tell kids, it's okay to make mistakes. You're going to try. You're going to do the best that you can. And then they watch the adults in their lives doing the exact opposite, struggling with perfectionism and beating themselves up over these little teeny mistakes and being so unsure of their self-worth, being attached to the outcomes, that those are actually the messages that they're getting. And if we're really trying to make change, and this is why, I work with teachers, because I think that if we are able to teach and guide educators to know their worth, to be fluent in the language that you're speaking, that I'm speaking, and make change for themselves, everything changes. That's how we make change in this world. It's so exciting, isn't it?
It is. We just have to go back to our light within, and then all of a sudden things around you shift and change. I mean, I tell everyone, I'm like, don't discount the moments where you're walking by someone in CVS or in the grocery store. Like, don't discount those moments. Smile at someone, you make their day. I mean, it's the small things that compound over time in our lives that really make a big difference. And it's just how we shift everything. So I completely agree. And I think that kids, just like you said, they know intuitively. They're like, this is supposed to be more fun. Why are you so stressed? You know what I mean? And I think as we get older, we're like, no responsibility. I think there's something to be said about the joy of living, for the sake of living, going outside on a summer day and just going to be in the grass. I mean, we can learn something from kids. I probably would go back too and be like, what are you learning from them, Taylor? Instead of, you always need to be the leader. You know what? No, because we're all one. I mean, I guarantee you that taught me things that I probably looked right past because I was so concerned about the marking period or whatever it was. So I think the key to all of it too is just presence, just being, so you're able to receive all the gems.
Yeah. Well, everything is just so damn serious all the time. And the truth is, nobody gets out of here alive. So what are we doing?
And by the way, the world keeps spinning if we laugh. I enjoy what I do. I'm still making money. Somehow it's working. You don't have to suffer.
Yes. Can
Yes.
we stay there for a second? I think that there's this really interesting, I was just talking with someone else about this too. I'm so glad you just brought this up, that there's like this divide, right? Because especially in education, there's this fight for respect, for money, for resources, for smaller class sizes. You name it, the list is very long. I know you know what that list is.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like there's this almost strange connection with, if we're fighting, then it has to feel like struggle. Because
Absolutely.
if I'm enjoying myself and being present, then I must not be fighting the fight. And I think that's a completely false and unproductive way of looking at this. Because
Yes.
if we are feeling whole and aligned, we're actually going to be able to be more articulate and productive in our efforts to make change. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh my gosh, you're speaking my truth right now. Yes, no, I'm all about that. I think the journey starts, it has to start within. And it just goes back to that very old saying that we say, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's true. When your cup is depleted, you can't do anything. You can't do anything. So when we sink down to that place of being bitter and very angry and this and that, it really is not something that becomes productive. And I think, what do we all really want to feel? And what are we all void of? Connection. How do we feel connection? Well, first of all, we need to be open to receiving it. We need to be open to giving it. And that means if you're feeling that sense of joy within, think about how you can make a difference with people. So going back to my grocery store example, when you walk into the store, you're mad, it was the traffic, it was this and that, all the, whatever it is, you walk by everyone, you're grunting this and that. Well, I don't think we just did anything really good. And maybe I just came from fighting for something, whatever it is, but now I'm walking throughout my life in this space of feeling just miserable. You know what I mean? And so I think that there's something to be said. There's a time and place when we have the honor and the privilege of speaking up and working towards something, and at the same time teaching people and being a model of like, you get to enjoy this beautiful experience. And in the in-between, oh my gosh, is there so much life to be lived? And that's how that flower beautifully gets to bloom. So I'm all about that. And I teach my clients that often. And it's a joy watching people start to embody that and live that way. And then things really shift in their life. And I'm like, oh my goodness, imagine if the world started to shift in that direction. Oh, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because we're going to circle back to what you said before. Our kids are watching the adults in their lives as an example of how to live. And so if we as the adult are operating under our limited beliefs, under our disempowering emotions, and that's driving us, that is what our kids are going to experience, which then enables them to grow up and be exactly where we are right now.
Right.
And I'm just not available for that anymore. It is not working. And that urgency that I feel like lights a fire under my butt every single day, Taylor, and gets me out of bed and let's go, because we deserve more and our kids deserve more than that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're hitting that breaking point in society where people are starting to shift in that beautiful direction because it's so needed. And I think as we get older, people become a little bit jaded about things. It's because in your soul, you know that it shouldn't be like that. You know it to be true. There is a sense of joy and wonder that we deserve to have while living here. The more that we can try and figure out, well, what does all this mean? Again, like we talked about before, the more confused you get, that only leads back down to one thing. I guess we just get to live, and we have to live. So something tells me churning our wheels and all this and that. Some things change, some things don't, some things get... So at the end of the day, what do we have control over? Perhaps it's a little bit of releasing the control. And that's really alignment. It's releasing some of that control and saying, you know what? The only thing I can ever do is just be here. And personally, I would like to enjoy it.
Yes, same.
Yes.
Same. And I remember a couple of years ago, I would get up in the middle of the night and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I was thinking, I was futuring and worrying. And relatively recently, my phrase that if this happens again during the night and it works like a charm is just be where your feet are. And I go back to sleep.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, and the world kept moving. Nothing blew up. Okay, oh my gosh, the house didn't collapse. Like things are okay. It's very liberating and humbling sometimes to just be like, you know what? Wait a second. Am I in my body? Where are my feet? Okay, we're good. You know?
Yes, we're good. We're good. And then we get a good night's sleep and we can do it all again in the morning. So everybody wins. I need to ask you now the same question that I asked to all of my guests, which is, what is your dream for the future of education?
Honestly, in a tangible way, I think that there should be, and I come from elementary, 2 teachers in a classroom. I want to see 2 teachers in a classroom with no more than 20 students. I do not think that it is possible for students or teachers to do this the right way when there is one teacher in charge of that many tiny souls that are learning what it means to be alive. I also would love to see a shift in the expectation of how students are expected to behave and exist in the school environment. I understand that they're learning and we're all, yes, there's a way that we want to act, all of this, but I think that we're starting to understand our souls are, everyone's so different. Like, I would love to see a more tailored and unique version of what it means to be in school, a different level of freedom for some of the students. And I know not everyone jives with that, but I really think that we're heading to a world that's a little bit different. And if it means that you have smaller class sizes and more support in there, and the students have a little bit more autonomy to explore and to be more structured playtime that's in there for them, I love that, because I want them to keep that sense of wonder for the world and have it be fostered. So I would love to see that shift. And then the academic portion would come after as well.
Yes, I love it. And I say this also after everyone shares their dreams. I do really believe that the more that we say our dreams out loud, we're closer to them actualizing.
Absolutely.
And I hope that people who are listening begin to dream themselves. And it's important to connect with what you want, what you desire, what you wish, because that is how we make really important and impactful change in this world. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
If people want to learn more about you, get to know you, learn how to work with you, where can we send them?
Yeah, so any of my social media platforms. So I'm predominantly on TikTok and Instagram. So my handle is just my full name. It is Taylor Ryan Nardone. And I always have a link right in my bio. If you ever want to book a session with me, I definitely have a couple of different offers in there. And I'm working on getting my YouTube channel up and running. So that's next up, but definitely TikTok and Instagram.
So fun. And that's how I found you, was on Instagram. And I've loved all of your content. And it really led me to see how much we're speaking the same language, which then, of course, inspired me to reach out. And I'm so glad that we had this conversation. It was so good to talk with you.
Yes, no, this was incredible. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you do in this world. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. And you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I received that.
Yes.
So if you love today's episode, be sure to write a 5-star review, share with a friend, and we will see you next time on Take Notes. Incredible, right? Together, we can revolutionize the face of education. It's all possible, and it's all here for you right now. Let's keep the conversation going at Empowered Educator Faculty Room on Facebook.